Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Slowinski, and I am the Program Director for Lutheran Disaster Response International, as well as the Interim Senior Director for Building Resilient Communities for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And so I'm really pleased to be here and be with all of you to share more about our experience when it comes to responding in times of disaster. And so before I start, I'm hoping perhaps, I think we're a good enough of a group, small enough of a group to kind of, if I can perhaps ask a few questions, maybe by raise of hands. How many of you actually was or at one point worked in a nonprofit organization? Raise your hands. Fantastic. And how many of you have worked for a faith-based organization? Anyone? Okay. And so one of the key things that I wanted to let you know is that many of the humanitarian response doesn't always happen with the government or with the American Red Cross or other big agencies. It also happens in smaller agencies and in places where you may not have known, and one of which is the church. And so depending on the denomination that you're in, most of the time, they do have a diaconal arm or a service arm related to humanitarian response. And so for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, or the Lutherans here in the United States, they have a ministry known as Lutheran Disaster Response. I don't know, Diego, if one of your speakers was from LDR. Mike Stady, perhaps? No, okay. So yeah. And yes. So he and I work together, but I'm now overseeing the portfolio. And so the difference between the disaster ministries in faith-based organization, in addition to it being more on the smaller scale, is that we tend to be used when it comes to trusted agencies. And a lot of these is the church relationship. As you all know, if you go to any country around the world and you ask people who is their trusted person, a lot of the times they'll say their priest, their pastor, or somebody that is related to their space of faith, their imam, right? And so that's the space that many of us faith-based organizations serve. We are present in those areas where not only are we in relationship when it comes to their theology, their places of faith, their belief, but also in their service ministry. Now, one of the key tenets that we have as a faith-based organization is that when we do come into these spaces, we don't proselytize. We don't say we're going to give you this money if you convert and start praising Jesus. No, that's not how these things work. We come in with an understanding that the church that we are accompanying already have a trusted relationship in the community. And so when a disaster happened, the goal is to make sure that they reach out to their communities, whether church members or not, and provide those immediate relief assistance. And so I'm hoping that, and Diego, do let me know if I only have 5 minutes or so left, because I want to make sure I have enough time for Grant. And so in this session, I really want us to be a bit interactive and a bit more in the now, in the present moment. And so I'm hoping somebody from this group can tell me what is the most top of mind right now when it comes to disaster. What's on the top of our news right now? I can be here all day if you don't tell me what it is, I swear.
Ukraine?
Exactly. So right now, as we all know, there is a war going on right now in Europe, and that is between Russia and Ukraine. And so just imagine being a small church in Ukraine or in smaller churches surrounding Ukraine. Can you give me a sense of what do you think is happening right now in those trusted spaces?
People go in there for safety, food, water, supplies, stuff like that.
Exactly. What are the things that we are seeing in the news right now? People from Ukraine, what have they been doing? Where have they been going? You see that many of them are leaving their homes. A lot of the women and children are asked to leave and men stay on. but then you wonder, where do they go? What do they do? And so a lot of the times, many of these churches, Christian churches, you know, and other denomination, Orthodox, they've been very active and provided immediate relief, food, non-food items, protection, especially right now in this weather. And so what I would like to share with you is an example of an appeal that you will commonly see in many of the faith-based organizations that are responding to the crises. And so for the ELCA, we have what we call Eastern Europe Crisis Response. Here we talk about what the situation on the ground, right? How many the people that were affected, and our planned response. So here, LDR is accompanying our companions in Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, as well as ecumenical partners such as Lutheran World Federation and Church World Service in humanitarian response to the crises. These partners provide refugees with immediate support and supplies such as food, blankets, water, and hygiene kits. And here you can see all the donation, ask for donation, information, et cetera, et cetera. So you will see many similar appeals, such as this one, reaching out to constituents and provide support to the work that we're doing. And so my question to the group is, what do you see here and what don't you see here? Meaning, let's start with the photo. The photo, for example, what do you see and what do you not see? And this is key for us as humanitarian actors. Wow, I might be giving such a hard. No wrong answers. That's if you know, this is not a quiz where you will be graded. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
Not a lot of like diverse people. I'm seeing like a lot of people, like the white people there, not people of like other ethnicities and stuff and such.
That's good. Yes. Anyone else?
A lack of uniforms. It seems like most of the people that are working there appear to be volunteers and not affiliated with some form of agency, but they're all just kind of in the same clothing.
Right. Thank you. And so here, these are actually all Ukrainians. And so for that reason, I mean, Jonathan, you're right that you don't see a lot of diverse because a lot of them are from Ukrainian, European descent. And Weston, yes, many of them are volunteers, but in this photo, these are actually Ukrainian refugees or IDPs that have just crossed over to Hungary. And so the food that you see here, the items that you see here are all from various organizations, many of which are church-based, that are providing those immediate relief. But what is really key and critical here is that no one here has a direct photo. No one here you can actually the face, because when it comes to human dignity, we need to make sure that we provide the privacy that they need, so they're not front and center, that their face is not identifiable. And that is very critical when it comes to humanitarian response, making sure that they are in a space where it's still dignified in a way, and that we as organization, when we take photo, we are very mindful of whether or not we actually sought permission for their face to be taken. And so, so that's one very key thing for all of us in humanitarian work to be mindful of. Another thing that you will see here in the response is that it's very vague. You know, we will be providing food, blanket, water, hygiene kits. And the reason being is that usually in the first 24, 48 hours, a lot of assessment is happening on the ground. We don't know what's possible and what is not possible. But for the most part, we do know that basic necessities will be essential, you know, such as food, blankets, water, and hygiene kits. Those are usually the norm, but specifically what kind they are, specifically where it's going to be happening, specifically who will be taking charge of that, we don't know that yet. And in fact, you know, even now that we're going to be close to a week starting tomorrow, we're still figuring that out. We're still figuring out what is the capacity of our implementing partners on the ground and what they're able to do. However, it is also important to know that this is in the news. It's on top of everybody's mind. People wanted to donate, people wanted to respond, right? And so we need to give our constituents, individual donors, etc., a space to go ahead and start providing and start supporting us. And that's the difference between faith-based organization and many that are non-ecumenical, whereby because there's already that faith component and trust component, many of the Lutherans know that when they give to LDR, they know it's going to go to a good place. If I put in my $20 here, I know it's going to go to a good place. And for me, that's very different and very unique when it comes to organization where we receive funds that are what we call unrestricted. And so you will come across language where it says restricted funds and unrestricted funds. Restricted funds meaning it usually is set aside for a specific person, a purpose by a specific organization, and unrestricted funds tends to be contribution from individual members or individual people for a more general purpose. So I'm going to stop sharing here for now and see if there's any questions just in terms of when appeals are being set up. Everything clear so far? Thumbs up? Okay, great. Great. Okay, so you as a humanitarian actor, when you see all these appeals that are happening, and knowing that as a church, we tend not to be the one on the ground implementing the work, what can you do? What type of information can you share, right? And so I'm going to share what is happening on the implementing side of the spectrum, or and see here. Sharing my screen. Okay. So here is an example of a concept note, and this is what we would normally see with our implementing partners. So in this case, it's the Lutheran World Federation, and they are based in Geneva, but works in many of the Lutheran churches around Ukraine, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. And so again, because this is just an immediate, 48-hour turnaround response, there's many information here that are still missing and will probably change as it moves along, but that's okay. Why? Because they're already a trusted agent. We worked with them in prior response, and so we know their capacity when it comes to responding to disaster. So here you will see critical information that we look for when it comes to responding to a disaster. Area, where are they going to be responding? Project duration, how long it will take. Here it says to be confirmed, but usually in this case, it's 6 months. How much money? In this case, is 5 million euros. And what is their priority? Their priority is to build the capacity of the member churches to develop that coordination mechanism, because they will be focusing on refugees and IDPs from Ukraine. Impact, we need to know how this work will impact the work on the ground, and definitely, it's the immediate along to support for refugees and IDPs. Who are the target beneficiaries? Be very specific as possible. Who are we working with? Refugees and the internally displaced people. And then the main activities. This is where things will probably fluctuate here and there, but we know programmatically it's along these lines of protection, safeguarding, prevention of sexual exploitation, abuse, psychosocial care, pastoral support, and then the food and non-food distribution of food and non-food items. We don't expect anything specific more to how, what type of food, what's the composition, all of the sphere standards. I'm not sure if you guys have gone through that yet, but all of that are not needed right now, but it is anticipated that they are adhering to certain core humanitarian standards when it comes to responding to a disaster. And again, you always have to have a rationale. Why are we doing this? Talk a little bit more about the disaster itself. That's something that we will be looking for. And specifically where this will take place, as specific as possible. Provide numbers, data, third source information. That would work for us too, in terms of finding out where the response will take place. Has there been assessment that has been conducted? Are you just making these up? No, we need to make sure that an actual on the ground assessment has been done. Did you call the church members? See what's really happening on the ground? When it comes to monitoring, evaluation, learning, all that information, do they have the capacity to conduct all those things? So we cannot just support something that is theoretical. There has to be some actual background assessment that's been conducted on the ground to know that the request is legit, so to speak, right? So there's many more information here that is provided: safety and security for the staff, reporting, communication, feedback and complaint. I mentioned core humanitarian standards. It's right here. That is very critical when it comes to international humanitarian response, is adherence to the core humanitarian standards. Budget, how did you come up with 5 million euros? Give me the basics. We're not asking for detailed, but just enough to know that where funding will go towards, right? So here you can see that 3 million euros would go towards non-food item purchases, cash-based assistance, meaning direct cash provisions, giving actual cash, psychosocial care, pastoral support, safeguarding, I forget what PSEA is. If folks here know, please put it on the chat. Shelter, advocacy, and communication. And then lastly, this is a real bonus for us, is to know where, right, and who they will be working with. These are the churches that they would be working with in these countries. So from the implementing side, these are the things that the organization really needs to put together in the most accurate way possible in order to submit a request for funding assistance to various funders, including us. We're not the only ones supporting this. There's a lot of European churches in Western Europe, the Germans, I think from Norwegians, the Swedes. So this is an all-out support in Ukraine, but know that us as foundation will be contributing towards that request. Any questions regarding the format on how applications are submitted? Is there anything here that you, based from what you've learned so far, is missing?
I do have a question, Marianne.
Yes, please. Yes.
So if I understand correctly, this is a document that you prepare and you submit to others, so you get funds. And in a similar way, your local partners, they have to do something similar, and then they actually send those documents to you, so they receive, you disperse the funds among the many partners?
Correct. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. So in this case, because LWF is a network organization and have direct relationship with the churches on the ground, we have the option of either supporting the network organization or directly to the church. A lot of the times it's also the relationship of how strong the relationship the network has with the implementing partners. If we believe that they have a strong relationship, we go through the network. If we feel like they don't have a strong relationship, we go bilateral and support the organization, local organization themselves, if we have a relationship.
And when the relationship is direct, it's always churches, or can be church-related organizations?
And it can be church-related organization, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we're not, it's a practice, and you will learn this, it's a practice to support other faith-based groups and not necessarily go non-ecumenical. But if there is no one present, then that is an option for us to support as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Was it too much? I'm sorry. Did I just put too much information? I couldn't get from the faces of folks here like, oh yeah, I already know that, So one of the key things that I also want to mention is language. So a lot of the times there's a difference between organizations that, I know exactly what I'm going to do. These are all the activities. Why couldn't you just go ahead and support us? And there is a difference of language between donors and implementers. Donors, they tend to see the overall results framework. What is the output? What is the impact? And you saw that in the proposal, right? How is this really create change, right? So that is what donors always like to see when it comes to requests that are coming in. However, for the implementing organization, they're like, but these are the key things that we're doing. We're going to be doing the training. We're going to do this collaboration work. We're going to do a lot of these outreach, So if you can see the difference in what I just said there's more of the action oriented from the implementing partners. And then from the donor is, what does this mean overall, right? And so many of our jobs here is to meet those differences between the two and create that seamless line. Like these actions that our implementing partners wanted to do, distribute, create a space, meetings, training, building capacity, those are means to the end in which the donors would like to see, meaning change in the well-being of people that were being affected by disasters, moving them out of the crises that they're in. So it's very important that if you are interested as a humanitarian actor to move into the space of being on the ground doing the work, to also to start thinking of how donors would like to see this. Because we're not there. I'm not in Ukraine. I'm not in Poland. I'm not in any of these spaces. But what I do care about is the person that's being supported. Right. And so, and I think that's the same for any funders, any organization that are supporting the work of humanitarian actors on the ground.